Hey, soul survivors, I'm here with Mallory, and we're going to talk about postpartum depression, also things that go along with our bodies, our mental state during miscarriages, abortion, spontaneous abortion, which is a miscarriage that you didn't necessarily want to lose a child, and also if you've delivered a child. Our bodies and our minds are intertwined. So Mallory, can you give us a little bit of information on some of the traumas that you've gone through and some of the things that you've struggled with?
Okay, I guess the most obvious one for this topic is a loss of a pregnancy. A loss of a pregnancy.
Okay.
Um,
How far along were you?
I did a blood test and they said when I did the blood test, I was 7 to 8 weeks pregnant.
Okay.
So when I got my first ultrasound done, I was supposed to be, it's like a week or two later. So 9 or 10 months into it.
9 or 10 weeks.
I'm sorry, 9 or 10 weeks,
Okay.
sorry. 9 or 10 weeks. It's been a while, so it's kind of hard to keep remembering all the time frames. So I think like a week or two after I had the positive blood test to distinguish how far I was.
Correct.
I went into my doctor's office. I think that's it now with COVID, even though it's the rules to it is kind of, died down a little bit, but in the health field, it's still very high. Like you have to go in, you have to wear masks.
So that is also traumatic. I had
It is.
a few miscarriages, but I didn't have that COVID stuff on top of it where you're already masked up. You're not seeing who's caring for you because they are wearing a mask. So a lot of women go through PTSD after a miscarriage. And I know you've had some struggles with ups and downs in your emotions, the loss that you feel.
Yes. So on top of it, I had gone through a divorce. I was dealing with an unplanned pregnancy, with a new relationship I was in.
So you had stressors too. I know I lost mine, I believe, due to stress, and also during my custody battle, my attorney, who was female, she had a miscarriage. So if you are pregnant, try to deal with the things that you're going through, and that's what's so important with this. But we also start feeling guilt or mixed emotions. So whether you had the natural spontaneous abortion or a planned abortion, your body still feels pregnant. And then also you're like, do I tell people? Or you might feel guilt, or you might have changed your mind, or you might have wished for that baby. And I know you've longed for this child.
It was very hard because I was going through the stress of the custody, just similar to you through
Right.
custody. I had a new relationship. Few months into the relationship, I got pregnant. Having to deal with my age because I'm in my late 30s, which is still young, but is considered geriatric.
See, I was 38 when I had my first miscarriage. And you were 35, 36?
36.
Which
I would have been,
so
I would have
young,
been
but-
37 if I had,
Okay.
if I.
So you were 36 when you were
So I was
pregnant.
36 when I was pregnant. The father was older too.
And that can play a
So that's, we were both, that was his main thing that he was very worried about because of our age.
He was what, in his 50s?
Yes,
Okay.
in his early 50s. So he was very nervous about that and having to start, doing everything all over again.
Right.
So going back to the office, so I couldn't bring anybody in with me for the first ultrasound.
Oh, so you had to go it through even the good and the bad. by
Yeah,
yourself.
so I was all excited. So I even asked, like, well, can you just come with me or just be in the waiting room? And they were saying, so this is like 2020.
No, it was 2019. And then
No, I'm talking about I know with COVID, but with me, I was 2002. and they wouldn't let him come in with me, so he couldn't come with me.
You're probably talking 2022.
Yeah, 2022, did I say that?
2002, I'm like, what?
2022, I wish it was, sorry, I'm like really bad at numbers. But, yeah, so, yeah, there's so many dates that you have to memorize and stuff,
Right.
and I've noticed that, like, after losing the baby, that
Yeah,
I'm
my
very
mind,
flustered, like, I mix things up because it's so hard for me still, it's been a year, almost 2 years, and my brain still feels scattered. Just now, I'm starting to feel somewhat
and it's
normal.
interesting because I somehow keep wanting to say I had my miscarriage in 1998, but it was 2008.
Mhm.
So I can relate to
Yeah,
what
you
you're saying.
feel very scatterbrained. So so I was like, okay, I'll just have my phone out and I'll record the ultrasound. Because usually you get like a little CD and stuff, but usually it's for like when you're like
Further
full
along.
term and stuff, like closer to. So this is my third pregnancy.
And you had two healthy children.
Two healthy, yeah. I've only been pregnant 3 times in my life, so I never had a miscarriage. And my pregnancies were very healthy. I tended to overcook my babies. So
She had long
I-
pregnancy. She didn't cook them.
Yeah. So, yeah, my daughter was a few days over, which I know is not uncommon, but with my son, I was, almost 3 weeks overdue.
3 weeks overdue.
Mhm,
And
yeah,
that's
so
the second
if
child.
I had him the next day, would have been 3 weeks
Wow.
overdue.
So looking back, when you had this miscarriage, you already probably felt, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were kind of alone. You're a single mom now. Your partner wasn't allowed in the waiting room even,
Mhm.
and you weren't living together. So even though you were still talking to him, had a decent relationship, he wasn't there holding you at night or understanding everything or seeing what you were going through. I know a lot of times you would cry and you're like, I feel so alone.
Mhm.
And
But
did
it
it
was
get
really hard
worse?
too, because I was like, my kids are already going through this change, and now I'm adding another baby. How are they gonna feel? Like every mother gets like that with every kid you have. You always worry about, oh my gosh, this other pregnancy, how's it gonna change? And then the baby does come, and then it ends up being, oh my gosh, why was I
Right.
so concerned? Why was I so worried? But as a mother, all those thoughts go through your head, and the stress, the fear, my safety from my
Health?
ex spouse and stuff. So I was very worried that um it would cause him to be, even though we weren't together, it would
Lose
cause
his
some
cool.
and yeah, so he might get angry at me, and for the safety of my kid, like, because I was kind of like a walking target and stuff.
Yeah, she had, not exactly sure if it was narcissistic, but there's definitely a lot of warning signs. Sorry, I'm clearing this off, so all these pop-ups.
So, and I just was really excited to see the baby and stuff, and see the heartbeat, because all my baby was out. My daughter, I think my first ultrasound was like 5.5, 6 weeks, and she had a heartbeat.
Right.
Then with my son, they didn't do his first ultrasound until I was 19 weeks pregnant.
Okay.
But now they're kind of changing that now.
So my first miscarriage, it's really sad. I remember my aunt had a miscarriage and I remember thinking God would never do that to me. I feel really sorry for my aunt, but I am blessed. This will never happen to me. And then it did. Now that baby I saw on an ultrasound, I saw the heartbeat, and I'm sorry, my first one I saw the heartbeat. On the one that I lost, I saw the placement. Where the placement is, it's a higher likelihood it was a girl, and there was the no fetal pull and no heartbeat. So we kind of knew that most likely
How far were you again?
10 weeks, I believe.
10 weeks? Okay, so it was kind of like close to me, because my baby would have been like 9, 10 weeks. But I remember going into the room, and doing the ultrasound and stuff. Where they did the stomach first, and then they were like, okay, no, I'm not seeing anything, so then they used the wand for a little
Right.
bit. And I was about to hit, record and stuff like that, and I was also in the medical field. So I kind of know a little
You
bit
kinda
more. I
know.
know the little cues when something's going on and it's like, oh, this is not right. Even looking at the screen, they're like, oh, here's your baby and how far are you? And they're like measuring the baby, and then she kept on remeasuring, and then she like turned off the screen.
Okay, so.
And she's like,
instantly-
and then she's like, I don't know if she told me then, but I knew the nurse that I was like
She's
dealing
probably
with
not
throughout the week.
allowed to tell you what's.
No, she really did say there was no heartbeat.
Okay,
And I don't know if she went out to the room to tell somebody, or if she had a button to call the nurse. I don't know. Because the nurse I did know came in right away
okay,
and was she was the nurse that I spoke with, and she, up into the sonogram, ultrasound, that I talked to and stuff
Okay.
with pregnancy wise. And she just came up and like hugged me. She's like, the ultrasound lady, which is odd because she was telling me this and not the nurse. And I've always felt like all my the people who are, I don't know, it's because they see it every day that it's not, doesn't seem really special to them.
you become
Or
immune to it.
Yeah,
in
or
that sense.
because they've seen good and bad, they're just kind of
They have to shut down.
shut down and stuff. But I've never had good experience with my ultrasounds because people are not excited. They're just kind of like really like
It's a
cold.
boy, it's a
Yeah, like,
girl.
oh, here, this is blah, 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 blah. Very scientific and just left like that. But she told me that the baby was measuring 6 weeks and that there was no heartbeat.
Oh, okay.
And because of my blood work that I did before, the chances of us being off date was very, very unlikely.
Right.
So here I am, in a dark room, exposed because, you have,
just-
physically and emotionally exposed,
Right.
because when you're in those rooms, you have to undress and stuff like that.
Right.
And being there like all by myself and not having anybody. And I remember, calling, the father to let him know that, there was no heartbeat. So like that was very stressful. So I left the office, and then I think and then they didn't really prepare me for what would happen next.
Right.
Um,
And sometimes knowing what's gonna happen ahead of time can give you comfort, not that you want it to happen, but you expect it, you don't panic.
and I don't feel like they really prepare you or really talk to you about it. They kind of make it sound like you're just gonna have like a heavy period. And and growing up, my cycles were always really heavy. So, and I always experienced like cramps. It's like you're gonna be cramping. There's gonna be a lot of, a heavy period.
Right.
But opening up and talking to other women who've had miscarriages, it's not like that at all. So I don't know if they're just inexperienced because they've never experienced it before,
True.
or they're just trying to protect you.
Yeah, I bled so bad that I had to have blood transfusions because the fetus was not shedding, so my body was trying so hard. I literally had clumps this big every 3 minutes,
Yeah.
blood clots, and
So so a lot of times when you have a miscarriage, I don't know if they did it with you, but they give you an option to miscarry naturally,
that's what I chose.
or you can do it chemically. But usually I know some people who do it naturally, after you have a miscarriage, they have you do the chemical way too, just to make sure that
See, I wasn't shedding.
that everything is expelled, so nothing stays in your body to poison you further.
Right.
I chose the chemical way. Cause I also had a girlfriend who shortly before I lost my baby, she lost her baby as well. And, so I was like, okay, do you just give me the medicine and I go home, or like, do I have to, or like, you guys do at the clinic? And they say, no, we don't do any of that stuff here. You'll have to go to, a special clinic, like
Okay.
Planned Parenthood or something like that. They will give you the medication. And I think I wanna talk about this because I think a lot of people have misconceptions. That way, this is an abortion, this is, you know, like
Right.
Planned Parenthood is bad, you're killing your child. But there's a lot of other things that they deal with.
Right.
Cause I knew that at that time,
There was,
of other experience of other women who have done it naturally, that it can be days.
and I ended
you-
up needing the DNC because I was bleeding out.
Yeah, and I have, with my pregnancies, it wouldn't have been safe for me either because I have, my children have both given me, clot disorders.
She has a very interesting case. So you have a clot disorder, and are you on medication for that, like heparin or?
No, because, one of them, with my daughter, it's kind of like an RH negative, factor in a way.
This was
Kind of similar
due to her being pregnant,
Yes,
changing.
yes,
who
so
she-
my daughter had an antigen, kind of like if the mother was RH negative and the baby was positive, but reversed.
Okay,
So, if I had another baby that had, the same blood work at, like the same antigen as my daughter had, my body would attack that baby. So if it's, so,
did it turn you negative?
yes,
The RH
it turned me negative, so I have an antigen, so there's two different ways, so with my daughter, if I had another baby, so when I had my son, I had blood work drawn to, read my levels,
Okay,
to see if he had it, so if he had it, then my body would attack him, so I would either have an early miscarriage,
the baby can also be.
I
born
would-
deaf.
or I know I would have, a premature delivery, I'd go into, or, you know, I'd either have to deliver the baby early, depending on how far I was, and if the
Right.
baby was too little to, have him early, he would have to get blood,
Transfusion?
transfusions in
Oh,
in
wow.
vitro.
In vitro.
In vitro for
Inside the
him,
womb.
yes, but after the pregnancy, at that time, only 12% of the US blood I can receive.
Are you, is it because you're negative
Cause
now?
cause the antigen, so anyone who's ever been pregnant, so I can't get any blood from any women, because whether you may or may have not known that you're pregnant. You could have
Really?
been exposed, so if you, like, you know, there's some people who miscarry and they
and you
don't
don't
even
know.
know, they're only like 3 weeks pregnant.
Because
But they
only
can have that
25, what is it,
antigen.
25% of fertilized eggs get implanted.
So they could have that antigen and not even know. I can't receive blood from people who've had organ transplants, blood transfusions, or bone marrow transplants.
Okay, because it's that high risk.
So, and you can't really test for it because that antigen can stay dormant. So even if you test the blood, you're not sure.
Interesting.
So I can't even donate blood. And then so I should be wearing a bracelet because I can't receive
Yeah.
blood, because if I receive the wrong blood, it's a delayed reaction, so I won't have it right away, it can happen within days, weeks, or even months. And then my whole body will start clotting. And then with my son, now at only 8%, from last time I know, it could be lower now because I don't know if people are donating his blood as much, but at the time of my pregnancy, only 8% of the blood I could receive in case I needed one.
So
Because
even like the universal donor of O, you still can't get it from a female.
Yeah, and I can't get it through someone who has had blood transfusions or anything like that. So
So
with
yeah,
him, I have deep vein thrombosis, so blood clots in my legs,
Right.
or pulmonary embolism, blood clots in the lungs. And that can develop at any moment.
wow,
So, but with this baby, the chances of them giving me that antigen is unlikely, because it seems that it came from
that
my,
father,
yeah, my children's
that
father.
match, yeah.
Mhm.
So different matches do cause different
Yeah.
issues, or sometimes it works out better, but
Mhm.
now when you had the miscarriage, what was it that you felt that was different than when you had delivered your children? Because our bodies,
I did not really feel a difference. Cause
Okay.
that's the one thing they don't tell you. Um, that it's not a period, it's labor.
well, as far as your depression or anxiety.
Oh, with that, I didn't have anything like that with my first kids. I'd never been diagnosed with depression. Um, I did have some anxiety and stuff, but it never affected, like, I was never a nervous mother. Like, I was a very confident mother during my pregnancies, during, my motherhood, and
Right,
when my second child came in to the world, I never had this anxiety or anything
Right.
like that. So
because I felt guilt. I had, the second miscarriage I had, I was sewing and I sewed through my thumb. The needle broke off and my daughter was nice and she yanked it out, but the bottom piece broke off. So I had to have like a mini hand surgery. Also took ibuprofen. And then I told the doctors, I don't know, there might be a chance I'm pregnant, and they're like, no, you're fine. Because I wasn't even due for my period yet, but it turned out I was pregnant and I lost it. So I'm like, was it because of the ibuprofen or the stress on my body or the medicine from?
well, what would help you feel a little bit better is what I've always been told, because I know, like, with my daughter, I didn't know. Planning on, I was married, but I didn't plan on the pregnancy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just went to my friend's bachelorette party and I was drinking, and they're like, is my baby gonna have fetal alcoholism? They're like, no, 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 no. Like, the first one, right now, like, during that time, your baby was cells. So your baby wasn't even attached to you yet, so it wouldn't have affected your baby at all.
Okay.
Not until the baby's like
That's-
attached and formed. Even when they're attached, they're still they're at that form, they're still cells. Not until they start like developing that it would
Right.
be. That's what they told. I don't know, because they probably just, I don't know if they're just saying that just to
And,
make me
and
feel
there are
bad.
things too, though, that, you see people, always stay healthy. I'm not saying don't stay healthy, but there's people who, do drugs or, it will affect the baby.
Mhm.
Or they drink way too much alcohol. And you think me just that one time taking ibuprofen when there's people on all
Mhm.
these different things, so. The guilt we feel over the small little things, like I had Subway sandwich, and they tell you not to eat lunch meat, little
I know,
things
you
like
can't
that.
eat anything, and you're so hungry, and
And
you're
don't
like,
eat
what is safe?
buffets and,
Yeah, and don't eat too much sugar, and you're
or
like,
tuna
oh,
fish
gosh.
and.
Yeah, I'm a tuna fish girl, so I was like,
But I know a lot of people go through guilt. Guilt's a big thing, or the what if. What if will eat you alive? So one thing that if you guys have gone through some type of miscarriage or loss, or even thoughts of an abortion, like should I have done it, or what if, or it would have been this birthday this year, that there is some type of acceptance that we have to go through, or we get stuck in that rumination, stuck in the what if, and letting go, you know, is freeing, and it's hard to let go, but the memory can live in our hearts and our minds, but
yeah, so it was really hard because, I think the chances of me coming out of this untouched is unlikely, because I found out that my baby didn't have a heartbeat on my brother's birthday. The
Okay, a little
following,
louder, just.
oh, my ultrasound was on my brother's birthday. And then the next day, I had, is when, I had to go to the clinic, to,
Have the
like, yeah,
service.
have the, you know, to, I wouldn't say it was an abortion because
Right.
I had already talked to the doctors. The baby had already passed, and it was just a matter of time when I was gonna have it. So it could happen that day, it could happen, 5 days from now, and then who knows when I would stop bleeding.
Right.
And the risk of me, you know, clotting, you know, it was just too dangerous for me. So the next day that was scheduled was my dad's birthday.
Oh.
So, I lost, no, actually, no, I think I went into the appointment on my brother's birthday, but I lost the baby on my dad's birthday.
Which is a lot like me, where I found out I was pregnant on Thanksgiving. I started bleeding on Christmas Eve, and I miscarried, like bled out on New Year's
But
Eve.
then it gets better in the worst way possible.
Right.
Because, a few months later, my dad passes away unexpectedly.
Right.
Um, and he was my rock. After the divorce and helping me with my children. So that was really upsetting because I'm just like, oh my gosh, am I being punished for something? Because here I am, lost my baby on my dad's birthday. And now I lost my dad. And also the baby was due on my birthday.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of,
Birthday.
yes, like it's supposed to be happy celebration. So, my miscarriage, anniversary was my dad's birthday, like the first time where, I wouldn't have my dad. So it was my dad's first heavenly birthday,
Right.
my baby's, anniversary for the miscarriage. My birthday was on Easter last year, or this year.
So now
So,
every Easter too.
yeah, so it's like my mom wanted me to come and be with family that year, which I did. But it was just kind of like, everyone is celebrating a joyous event
Right.
on my baby's supposed to be birthday.
Right.
And it was just, and it's my birthday, and it's just like, so, celebrating also like, a year of being divorced.
Right.
So it was like all this stuff at once. And so it really wasn't a surprise that I had postpartum.
Right.
But I didn't know it was postpartum because I was having all these feelings, and I'm like, what is going on? Because I don't know what these feelings
It's
are.
hard to separate. Is this because of the loss of dad, or the marriage, or this or that, or my kids, the adjustment?
Like, I felt like I feel like I have postpartum. Like, oh, you're sad, you're depressed. I'm like, this is more than just being sad and depressed. Like, I would assume that this would be like postpartum. But then I was like looking online and stuff like that about like postpartum after, miscarriage.
Right.
But a lot of the stuff that I was finding,
They'll
was
say it's
all
just a
about
few weeks.
off at like stillbirth or birth and stuff like that. But I'm just like, well, I wasn't pregnant for that long, so why am I having? But
Right.
with your body,
And
so
some
you
of
think it's pregnant, you're pregnant. It's not either little or a lot.
Right.
Either way,
You
you're
are pregnant.
and you still have the same hormones and stuff rushing
And
through your body.
sometimes too, and I think you're similar to me, where we wanted these babies and we were excited, and I was praying, let it be okay, let it be okay. And it almost starts to get obsessive, where you're like, please, when's my next appointment? And am I eating right? And do I have enough sleep? And I should stay away from the microwave, and all these things going through that. Our mindset almost brings like months of motherhood into a few
You're picking
weeks.
baby names. You already got like the nurseries picked out.
But they also have, and I know both of us were pregnant, but the psychosomatic pregnancies, where you can start developing breasts or a belly, different hormonal changes, your period can stop. And sometimes it is that desire to have the baby And so if just wanting a baby can change you, being pregnant and wanting the baby can also lead
Yeah.
to that feeling of being pregnant, but now the baby's gone.
Well, I had always dreamed about having, because my son was 10 days before my birthday. So when I had this baby, you know, or before I had this baby, I was like, oh my gosh. So my son's birthday is the month before mine, and my daughter's the month after my. So it was like boom, boom, boom. And I was like, I was like, with my being so far pregnant with my son, I was like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great if he was born on my birthday? That would be amazing.
Right.
I would love that. I would love to have a baby on my birthday. And then I finally got that baby, but it didn't come to fruition.
That's crazy.
So that was kind of like saying, like, oh my God, this is the baby I've been dreaming of. I've always wanted another baby. My husband, Mac's husband, got a vasectomy shortly after our son. And I always wanted more babies, and he didn't. So this was like when I did get pregnant, I was like, oh, this is meant to be. And then
Right.
knowing that it was my birthday, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have this baby on my birthday. I don't care.
Right.
I know I overcook my baby, I'm overcooker, but I'm gonna make sure that this baby's gonna come on that day. No ifs,
Right.
ands, or buts, okay? And so I was excited about that, but when they prepare you and stuff, they just say like, oh, you're gonna bleed a lot. And my doctor kind of like set us up like, here's some clinics you can go to and stuff like that. And then which the father did come with me, and but he had to wait in the parking lot. He can be in there with me.
Okay.
At the clinic. They
And
weren't letting anybody in.
That's gotta be real hard during COVID.
And you couldn't even wait into the you couldn't even wait in the waiting room. You had to check in, and then they would call your phone to call you in the back.
I forgot, yeah.
And so you're on the parking lot, and then you have these people who are like railing in front, because this was during the time where they were fighting Roe versus Wade too, on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's even more traumatic for me, because I'm like, I'm not here for an abortion. I'm here because of health reasons, because
Right.
my pregnancy's already gone. Like, you know, I'm not,
Right.
it's not gone, but you know, like there's no life.
Right.
And then kind of being freaked out, then like, oh my God, these people are gonna like harass me and stuff like that. Like, and it was hours before like we could get in. Like, so we were sitting, and I was lucky to have him there with me, and he was texting me the whole entire time that I was.
That's good.
In
Not
there,
everybody
so
has that.
Yeah, so and then you know they kind of prepare you somewhat, you think, and they're like, this is the time frame that's going to happen, and it's going to happen within an hour after you take this medicine and stuff like that. So before I took the second dose, I made sure that I went home with my mom so she could take care of my kids while I
Right.
but when it hit, man, it hit hard. It was not a period. It was not like cramping. It wasn't cramping at all. I didn't experience any cramping.
Okay.
It was contractions.
Yeah.
And they don't tell you, and you're pretty much, they give you ibuprofen for the pain, but what is ibuprofen going to do when
Right.
most people, women who are pregnant, if ibuprofen worked, they would give it to you when you're in labor, but no, they give you like the strong drugs.
Right.
So so for like an hour, I was in labor for like an hour.
Wow.
And yeah.
Now
so
mentally, did that make it harder? I know for me, having all those blood clots was almost in a sense a distraction. Because
see, with me, it happened all at once, so I wasn't like bleeding and stuff like that. Like, I felt really sick, like I had to go to the bathroom, and then I went to the bathroom, and then I could feel, because I was laying in bed, and I walked to the bathroom, and I went to the bathroom, and I felt everything, the sac and everything. I know it's like TMI, but I think people should know this because they don't really tell you this.
And that's why I appreciate you coming here, because even just the postpartum, so many people don't understand it or believe it, or they think you just.
It's very confusing when you're in that moment, because I was like, what is going on? And I was kind of, afterwards I did some research about, miscarriages. And when, and then also like the natural miscarriages and the chemical miscarriages for the women who
Right.
decide to have it all at one time and stuff. That your body physically goes through whiplash, and it scrambles your brain doesn't know the difference
Right, what
between
just
up and
happened?
down and up. And it's really hard to focus and concentrate because your body is just screaming. Your brain is just screaming, like they have no idea what is going on. They don't know how to handle it because they're like, wait a second, we're pregnant, but we're
Right.
not pregnant, but we are pregnant because you still have the hormones. So your body's still pushing out these hormones throughout your body. And
It's also
but your
losing,
mind,
it's
but your mind, yeah,
decreasing,
yeah,
but also.
yeah. So it's like everything. And then when you, because you have a daughter, and I have two babies. When you have your child, it's important to have that skin to skin contact, the breastfeeding, the taking care of
It's
the
good
baby
for us too, though.
helps level out your hormones.
Yes,
But when you don't have that and it's so abrupt, your body has no way of calming itself down.
and
But
also
you're like, wait a second.
breastfeeding with the
Yeah.
contractions.
They're like, wait a second, we just had a baby, but we're not getting that
The reciprocal love.
yeah, yeah, so we're not
Comfort.
getting, yeah, mhm. So we're giving things out, but we're not receiving anything, so what the heck is going on? They don't know what to do, they're like, where's the baby, where's the baby? We need this baby to stabilize herself, and you don't
Right.
have that baby. So I think it's probably even similar to those who, um, lose their baby, stillborn or shortly after,
Right.
or even mothers who are surrogates or giving their babies up for adoption. You don't have that baby to calm down your system.
Right.
So, I felt like that a lot, like when I was going through it, like it was very traumatic. And then after the end, my body was just like, my mind was just out of it. And I just cried. And gosh, I probably cried for a whole year. Um, it was very hard for me to, be around my children, where I worked. I had to deal with a lot of like baby items, seeing pregnant women, seeing babies that were, or women that was like how far I should have been, or seeing
Right.
their babies. I
Kind of hard
couldn't,
time baby pictures.
I still have a hard time looking at my children's baby pictures. Touching items and stuff of babies, I just couldn't, like, I would have a full blown panic attack, and then I would be in the bathroom at work for 30 minutes, just crying, trying to get myself together. Yeah, so it was 90% of my day, I was crying or holding back, tears, like I would
Right.
have panic, like I was in full panic attacks. I was still had to work and function and stuff.
That's what's hard. Yeah, you
Because
gotta
I was
bring
a
home the
single
money.
mother. I was a single mother, and I couldn't let, I didn't have time to mourn. So I didn't have time to mourn the loss of my child, and then on top of it, my dad dies. So I have two people I'm mourning after, but I can't mourn after them because I can't. You just
Trying to be
can't,
happy for
because
your kids.
you have to be there
function.
because they're struggling too with the loss of their grandfather and stuff,
Right.
and they didn't know I was pregnant. So, it was a hard time, and I was just like trying to do all this research because I'm like, why am I feeling this? Because it feels like, and I would tell my mom, I would tell people like, yeah, I know it's very traumatic. You're probably just very sad because dad's lost, and they're very,
They're trying to say the right thing, but they're
saying
not
things. So I'm like,
understanding.
this is more. There is something wrong, and I don't know what it is.
Has it gotten worse or better over the time?
It has gotten better, but it's hard too because I think I've, and also in the research we were talking about postpartum depression. Sometimes, it's very common, and it sometimes it goes on its own.
Right.
But if it doesn't get treated, it can go into full blown, depression and stuff. Chronic.
Right.
And I think with mine, it kind of went both ways in a way, where it kind of put me, gave me PTSD.
PTSD, it's the one time, like, CPTSD is when it's like a repeated event such as narcissistic.
Well, yeah, like
abuse,
it's chronic, well, it's chronic where it's not just
The
based,
event was
yeah,
like the loss.
and I think I haven't been diagnosed with that one, but I think I probably would because the chronic one is when you're exposed to
It's
multiple,
complex,
yeah, many situations that have caused that trauma,
Right.
where a lot of time PTSD is just focused on one specific.
Mhm.
But with the death of my, the
Right.
divorce, the
Yeah,
death of my
so-
dad,
Good point, yeah.
and in a matter of a few months, like a year, that
Right.
is very traumatic. So every month when I get my period,
That's the other thing
very
too.
traumatic.
You see blood, you feel different hormones going through your body, maybe even breast tenderness might
Mhm.
bring back memories,
Yeah. And
or even bloating.
yeah,
Sometimes
and
you're like,
I even early on, even though I wasn't pregnant for a long time, technically, a month and a half, 2 months. It was my third pregnancy, so I really couldn't hide my pregnancy because it really showed, even though I
Yeah,
wasn't really overweight.
subsequent pregnancies are
Yeah,
sometimes
so
easier to
yeah,
see.
with my son, I was showing by like 5 weeks and stuff like that. With this third pregnancy, I was
Cycle
really,
errors.
oh my gosh, I couldn't hide it from anybody because it was so obvious.
And sometimes
Especially
too,
where
I
I
wonder,
wear-
because with mine, it was my second pregnancy, but I kind of wonder, was there possibly, like maybe a warning sign, maybe we're holding too much fluid there, or our body knows it's not a viable pregnancy.
Mhm.
And
And
I
it's
don't know.
hard not to blame yourself. But then I was like telling people, like what is worse, like, because the father, he had lost a child in the first year of life. That was so this pregnancy was very traumatic for
So
him
his
too.
child that he did have was a year old approximately?
Yes, he
What
doesn't
did-
really
what did-
talk about it much because I can tell it's very traumatizing.
Was it
for him.
genetic?
I think it was somewhat genetic, and it seemed like it was a very quick thing. So I'm not sure if it was cancer. So I think it's more like genetic and stuff, where maybe seizures or something that he doesn't
And that's
talk
one thing
about it because he
to,
yeah.
Find out,
Mhm.
because that can affect.
Yeah, so with this pregnancy, he was very, very scared because it brought back experiences with his
Right.
child. And then, losing it, losing our
Right.
baby, it just was more. But then not knowing like if it was boy or girl or what the baby
Yes.
would look like.
Because
and
sometimes
stuff.
you want to name it to like remember it, like sweet little. I don't know if it was a boy or girl. Some people still like naming it a boy or girl name.
Yeah.
You know?
So, and that was really hard. Like, oh, what would the baby look like? What like
Right.
me or it's
What
just
color hair? Would they be tall or short, or a
mhm.
sports player, singer, or whatever?
Yeah, like, would they be like super tall? Would they be like my height? And stuff like that.
Right.
So, and it was really hard because I would see babies that would mimic what our child would look like together.
Right.
And that was like really hard. I'm just like, oh gosh,
Probably would
they had the
think
same,
that,
they would
yeah.
have the same features. Because of the father's racial background and stuff. So it was kind of like, yeah, so that was like really hard. And I'm just like, you never know. I had a feeling it was a girl. I'm pretty good at picking,
I'm
knowing
not.
the genders.
My
before I
daughter
knew-
was a boy in my.
when that
in my
pregnancy
head.
test turned positive, I'm like, oh, I'm having a girl. That was my first baby. I'm having a girl. My son, I didn't really quite know what he was gonna be, but that was because he was a boy. I had never experienced a boy,
Right.
so I didn't know that feeling. But with the third baby, I had a really strong feeling that
I had
it
a
was
strong
girl.
feeling with my first one, and then especially too when you see.
And in my family, we do a lot of these, because my great aunt, she's Italian. We had these little tricks and stuff with the wedding ring and the way you sit and step back and all that stuff was all aiming towards a girl. And those things, those kind of
Right.
things you would do are she was never wrong, never wrong.
Huh.
So
It is
even
a
though, even if the
50-50
people
chance
said
too,
like,
though.
oh, you're having a girl, like you did the ultrasound, like, oh, baby's a girl, and the baby, she's like, nope, that baby's a boy, and guess what?
Wow.
You'd have your baby and ends up being a boy,
You're like,
not a girl.
okay, all right.
So, and that was really, really hard. So, and I remember I had been open and honest about the loss of my baby on Facebook.
Okay,
I had a few friends that had miscarriages as well, or multiple miscarriages, and they kind of have been advocates
good.
for miscarriages and people understanding that um what I went through and stuff, going to a clinic, that it's not an abortion,
Right.
fighting for women's health, like you need to get this done because
That's the thing too, though, is like, my understanding is if it wasn't like the last year or something when I had what I went through, I would have bled out, no doubt. And, since it was still attached, it would have probably, a DNC would have been considered an
Yeah.
abortion, even though there was no heartbeat, I'm bleeding out.
and that's the
needed it to
only
save my
that's the
life.
only procedure that is done through a hospital. But my mom had a DNC because she had a baby. She lost her baby 2 months before he was
Oh.
due. So she actually had to do that and actually had to give birth to her child. And she had a coworker, a friend who her child had the same disorders as my mom's first baby did.
Okay.
And she was expressing what she had gone through with her DNC, being on the cold floor, having to kind of bear down on the floor to have birth before getting into the bed, trying to
Right.
get everything to push down. And my mom was just so traumatized by hearing it too. She's trying to stay calm for her, but she called me up and she's like, Mallory, this is before I was pregnant with her, but she's like, I just talked to so and so and she was telling me her experience. I can't believe that they're still doing it the same way that I did. And she's like, I felt like that was so sterile, so barbaric, and they're still doing that
Right.
procedure the exact same way, and it's so scarring.
Yeah.
And she's like, I just cried. She was like even traumatized. She's like, I can't believe it.
That
Like,
would be
it was
hard.
the exact same experience. I'm like, and I would think after 40 years that they would change the way that
But
did
they
it.
also wanna be careful too of scar tissue, so it's like, do we let it deliver naturally? It's an 8-month pregnancy. Let it come out natural so you avoid possible scar tissue. So there's a lot of things that they take into
Yeah.
consideration. But the mental can be sometimes more damaging,
Well, yeah, because then they and that's what kind of helped me is my friends actually, but they didn't really quite go into detail. Like it's labor, like it's a miscarriage. Is not like you are having a period, cramping.
see,
Your
they
body's
give you
going
something
into
to
labor.
contract. Mine,
But I've had other friends who went into natural,
Okay.
and they had experienced the same.
see, I don't know if
think it
my
just
body,
depends.
I can't remember if my body contracted, but I forced myself to contract
Mhm.
because you could feel.
Or I guess also depends on how the baby's attached, like like some people have back labor and natural birth,
Right.
or people feel different things, or how far you are, or
Right.
what. Um or if it's how far
Shutting
it's
up.
stretched, like if it's within a few days. Because I had certain friends that they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd gone the chemical way because the medication way, because they're like, I was just so much blood. And I was like, I can't, I'm already I've already gone through enough
Right.
trauma and stuff, I can't. And then you feel back, so I'm like, oh my God, I just
You feel you played a part.
and you're like, oh my gosh,
That's why I put it off,
Yeah,
just in case.
because it's like, where's my baby? I'm like, oh my gosh, I just went to the bathroom and I have to, they tell you, you have to look and stuff to see, but I couldn't because there was so much blood. I think they make you to try to look for it with. You're not in the bathroom, but I just had to go to the bathroom. That was just my like my instinct.
Right,
And then I was just like, my mom was with me. I'm like, I can't flush the toilet because I'm like, I'm gonna. It's like like I'm like treating my baby like a goldfish, and that was traumatizing, you know.
right,
Um, and then you could feel it because I had taken medicine for my kids and stuff like that, pain medicine, so I didn't really feel a lot of the labor part of it, and this was like first time experiencing it and
Right.
stuff. But I knew prior to giving birth that it was labor
right,
pain and not just cramping and stuff. But going back to the Facebook, what I want to talk about my experience, and people are a little put off by how open and honest I am, but I'm also in the medical field.
right,
And I've always been a strong advocate of women's health. And I felt like not a lot of people talk about this.
Right.
And women need to be prepared. Like it happens to a lot of women. And for a long time it's been miscarriages have been shameful. You don't talk about
right.
it. Cause it's it is depressing. It's very sad and you know, no one, you know,
It's putting,
society makes you feel like no one wants to hear about it.
right,
So I posted it on my plus, you know, Catholic and having a baby, not married. I
right,
think no. Even though I was in my late 30s,
right,
grown woman with my own job and, you know,
Right.
fully capable of taking care of children. Like, you know, she had Facebook messaged me and was being like, why are you saying this stuff to the whole world, to complete strangers? Why are you talking about this? If you really need someone to talk to, you should find a professional or talk to your family, but it should stay in the family. Like being very mean. And I was like, I am not going to, I'm not gonna apologize for what I did. Cause on my Facebook, I don't really have like random people. The
right,
people that I do have friends with, I talk to on a very
right, it's like,
Ba-
these
like,
are
yeah,
my
they're
friends.
Like they're like, you know, they're my friends, family members, people I'm close to, not anybody who are like acquaintances or anything like that.
Right,
But I was also putting it out there saying like, hey, this happened to me. It's okay.
right,
Um, let's, you know, I'm here for you because I had friends that had posted on their Facebooks about it and I knew I could come to them for help and like I'm feeling this way and they're like I understand and they you know they've helped me through my grieving.
did any of your family members give you a hard time, religiously? Or not?
Not really
That's good,
in a way, because my family, even though we're Catholic, we're true Catholics in a way where we, you know, you don't judge people, you know,
Right.
things happen, um children are a gift, um but they're also like things happen
right,
and it's okay. Like good and bad, you are loved. But the same kind of thing, like you don't talk about it though.
oh, okay,
You know, you don't talk about it. And you know, and my family, a lot of my family members, still don't know. But the ones that do, they think like, oh well, it's the blessing in disguise. You know, you should, you know, now you can really focus on your kids and just be lucky that you have 2 kids. I'm just like, and
Right.
that like
That-
kind of really upset me.
sometimes
Like,
people don't know what to say, but
well,
the
my
person
mom did
that's
because
hurting-
my mom, she lost a baby, and my aunt, lost a baby. Her baby died at 6 months old from a heart condition. So these 2 women who've experienced it are being very hurtful, and I guess I can say I have an aunt who is very religious, and I don't think she doesn't know about I think she might know about my miscarriage, but she doesn't know that I had to, for health reasons, go the clinical route.
right,
She would probably say
Did
really
they
horrible things. Yeah, 'cause she's done to my friends who have posted like, you know, fighting for women's health, like for Planned Parenthood and stuff like that, because her baby had a genetic disorder, she had lost the baby just like me, and she had a chemical
Okay,
procedure. And my aunt just went off, and she knew my friend since she was a little girl. She worked with her mother and stuff, and said these horrible things to her about like, that's not right. You don't kill you're a baby killer and stuff like that.
she said that to you?
To my friend, and I had to message her and I go, you better go online, erase what you posted on
Love that.
her, erase what you had posted on our family friend's Facebook page,
Right,
and you apologize her, and I didn't know, I'm sorry, I'm like, yeah, just because, this is the root and stuff like that, and it's an unnatural way, her baby was already gone, and that's what
Right.
she's fighting for is, rights, and so
Right.
women don't feel danger, because a lot of times they won't go to those clinics when they really need to,
right.
and then they
Out of
have
fear.
their miscarriage like you, and they end up bleeding out to death because they don't have the help.
Right,
Um, so yeah, she would probably like disown me if she found out, even though I'd already lost the baby,
right,
just because of her views and stuff, because I'm taking a step in it. I'm not having it done naturally, but I can't really have it done naturally because of the risk
right.
it put me in. But I kind of also, with my other aunt, I told her, like, I want, even though my baby's life was short lived and they never made it to this earth, it was still a life.
Yeah,
I want people to know that. So when I was pregnant, I first found out I was pregnant, with my son and the third baby, I told people right away.
right,
And they're like, aren't you afraid of miscarriage or something like that? I'm like, no, I think I'd be more mortified if I didn't tell anybody and no one knew about this life I had. And it'd be like this life never existed. And I felt like, no,
it's bringing it
this
to
life is important. This life is none less than any other life. So I'm gonna talk about this child. I am going to celebrate this child's life. And I don't care what you people think, because I think, one, this life should be celebrated, this life should be known about. And my experience and their experience, it should be shared so others can understand.
Right,
And that's why I continue. And in case there's another woman out there who is going through the same struggles of a miscarriage, they know who to reach out, because there's not a lot of people who understand.
and sometimes too, that's why, certain times it might be, if you don't have the right support system, that you might want to deal with either a therapist, or I do one-on-ones. Sometimes talking about it can make a huge difference, because if you go to a doctor, a lot of times they'll do antidepressants or psychotherapy. You can also do the one-on-ones, but sometimes just being able to express instead of holding it down or being afraid you're gonna be judged religiously, or were you married, not married, did you do something wrong, or some of your struggles, did they make you feel guilty for drinking or drugs, that sometimes the pain is what needs to be dealt with. And that's when you can go through the 5 stages of grief and start getting out of the denial stage.
But it doesn't always go,
It's not a
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes like 1, 2, and then you're back to 1, and then you get to 5, and you think you're doing good, and then that goes to 3, 4, 2, 8.
Yeah, nice little circle.
Yeah, all over the place. So I think it took, like, there was a small group. I think now I'm probably able to talk about it.
You've been
With
doing
a
better.
therapist,
Okay.
yeah, slowly, I think I'm more open with you because you have the similar experience. Oh my gosh, oh my god, the father, being
Different
really
name.
so, yeah, different fathers, but the fathers are pretty much very similar.
A lot in common.
So,
Like, let me tell you. No, I already
yeah.
know.
So, and he was, very supportive in that way, where he kind of like, I was angry. I was very angry, and kind of lashed out on a lot of people.
Okay.
Like my best friend, the father, just like.
And this
I
is
was
one thing I do wanna
mad.
talk about, because I didn't go through that, I got real quiet. But, and the
Because
depression,
I'm also
but
Italian, so I can't,
she's a little more boisterous than I. But that's some of the things that, the irritability or the lashing out, or sometimes we self-isolate. Or the depression that we go through where we stay in bed or don't shower or don't clean.
Mhm.
That we don't realize when we get stuck in that rut, that we're actually digging a deeper hole. And, it takes mental strength to pull ourselves back out.
But I kind of also felt like also that I wanted to hurt myself like in that way.
And another
wanna
thing
feel
is the
these-
self-harm. That is a
Like
symptom.
yeah, the emotional self-harm.
Sometimes we like staying sad.
Yeah.
I just wanna
Cause
cry.
and sometimes you need to feel those feelings in order to move on.
You have to face those feelings.
But yeah, but after I had a lot of panic attacks, a lot of just, I felt so scatterbrained. I couldn't focus on anything.
You
I
get the
couldn't-
brain fog.
And sure, and it's crazy because even after, and I don't know, because a few months before I got pregnant, I had gotten COVID.
Oh, so it could be the
So
COVID
I was
fog.
also kind of still off my game. It attacked my thyroid. So my thyroid was trying to get back on track. So, I was kind of like scatterbrained from that, and
Right.
then pregnancy, and then that. So maybe that had also had to play a factor in it.
It
But
could.
I don't know. You never know. But there's probably a lot of factors that all were involved and stuff.
Were you,
Um,
were you pregnant during the height? You weren't pregnant during the height?
No. I got
It was-
COVID later in like
After you were
2000,
pregnant?
2022.
After you had a
February,
miscarriage?
yeah, but no, February, 2022, and then I got pregnant, early July.
Okay.
So I was still going to the doctors and stuff like that with my thyroid and stuff, cause I was having dizzy spells still, my body ached and stuff like that, lung issues, I have permanent lung damage from COVID, cause I felt like I got COVID the year before it was COVID, cause it
Okay.
felt the exact same thing, they just said I had bronchitis, but this bronchitis was worse than anything I ever felt, and it took a long
Weeks.
time, months. I was
Oh.
coughing for like 6 months.
Oh,
Shortness
wow.
of breath, I couldn't really talk without choking. And then when I got COVID again, I got really bad. And they're like, yeah, this is not your first time having it.
Really?
So, yeah, so I was dealing with all that stuff and just not feeling right on. And it wasn't until like after I started healing and kind of getting a little better, my mom said, I'm just like, you know what? You did have postpartum. I know now that I see it now and now who you are now. Yeah, I could see you definitely had postpartum. But it was like really confusing because I always thought, oh, even the medical field and stuff, we learn about we learned about pregnancy, we learned about postpartum,
Right.
but they talked about like after you have a baby,
And they don't
a
talk
birth,
about.
after birth.
Right.
And when they talk about birth, it's
It can
a
happen
baby,
at
you know.
any trimester, so if you lose the child in your first trimester, or your second, or your third, it can happen to any of those women.
Mhm.
So what was it looking back? Before we wrap up,
Mhm.
can you tell me what the turning point was? Because your mom noticed something different in you. You see your mom fairly often, correct?
Yeah.
So how long has it been? Cause you went through it for quite a while. More than just a few
And it was
weeks.
harder too because I think it might have been also harder to get over because one of the girls that I know, she came approached me and she was like giving her condolence to the loss of my baby. And she's like, it gets better. For me, it was my son. She had a baby after her multiple miscarriages. She's like, and what's hard is that it's like she's like, I know you'll have a child soon, and that really helps the healing. But it's been about a
So we have,
year.
we have to be careful on that because I never had another child.
Yeah,
So-
and that's what's hard, cause I'm just like, well, that's what I'm going, it's been a year that I've been trying to have my fourth baby.
Right,
And nothing is, it's, you know, even though I'm tracking and I'm doing all the stuff I'm supposed to do, and it's not coming, and it's just, it's even more traumatic, 'cause it's like, oh, it's when my cycle comes, or the negative
and a lot of
pregnancy
times too,
test.
though, when you just let it happen, it
Yeah,
sounds
it's-
weird. but
Is
when
when
you-
it
It's like, oh,
happens.
wait, what? When people give
Mhm.
up, like, I'm
But
tired
it's
of
so
tracking.
hard when your mind frame is in that, and you just can't let it go, and just like, oh, maybe I am getting older, and like, what if this was my
that
last
biological
chance,
clock,
you
yeah.
know, and you're just kinda like, oh, I'm
But you don't wanna self-sabotage.
Yeah, but
I know, easier said than done.
that's my weakness, I like doing that, but, um. Just talking about it more, and talking to the people I feel comfortable with, it has gotten me out of that. Like, there's still some days where I give him hell for, I'm like still angry, and he just kind of like, where's this coming from? Like, you seem to be doing so well. Why am I getting yelled at and
Right.
stuff like that? And I know it's not his fault, but it's just kind of like,
Yeah, sometimes we have to realize, take a step back, like, whoa, take a deep breath, this isn't his fault. And that's part of this channel though, is struggles that we have.
but it's so
depression, anxiety.
complex though. Everyone is looking for like the textbook, like, oh, you either have
Take
PTSD
deep
or
breaths,
you have
or,
depression or anxiety, and like, no, you can have a mixture of all these things, and they're very complex feelings. So it's kind of hard to.
But we also have to be careful that when our brain chemistry starts going off with all the brain signals,
Mhm.
that we do start focusing on ourselves, that sometimes we forget that this person's there for us and we're lashing out
Mhm.
because of our anger, our needs. So what is it that we're missing? Maybe we need a hug. Maybe we need to, do a physical activity with our friends, or maybe reconnect. And it's not gonna be, and we have to understand, it's not gonna be the same connection. It is not gonna be that baby, but we also have to be careful that we don't try to get it through promiscuous sex, because we're longing for this physical being, and we're misinterpreting the loss of the baby for loss of connection, that we might start sleeping around or not making wise choices or drinking, and then our inhibitions are gone, and maybe we want a baby so bad
Yeah.
that we
But
just
do you think that kind of your healing kind of helps? Still having a relationship with your baby's father,
with
or do you
having
think that makes it harder? Because I feel like it goes both ways.
I enjoy that there's a friendship. And I know there's victims of rape or incest, or a one night stand where you could feel lost, or maybe it'll lower your self-esteem, that you have to build that self-esteem. So it gives you a comfort that you weren't just used and discarded. So it depends on other people too, though, where it's a constant reminder of either the baby or your relationship status. So that
Like, it's
definitely
hard to
will
let
vary.
go. It's like, if I let you go, like, I'm like holding on because that you're part of what we made together.
The one thing that was nice, like with my daughter's father, we went through, not talking, but then at one of the birthday parties for the grandkids, he was kind and brought the gifts I bought up to the house. And I was like, phew, like, it's just being cordial, like,
Mhm.
we had a child together, and can't we just be cordial? So that to me was
Mhm.
nice. Just at least be cordial, because what happened, and I don't like to carry grudges or hate. Other people are different, you know. So I think moving forward, when we start realizing, hormones play a big part in our action, even just a menstrual cycle.
And you think that, like, oh, and I wonder if it took me so long to get over, because I know it was very hormonal, that, it doesn't take like 3 months or something after the pregnancy to kind of, for your hormones start kind of going down. From, I think, from I remember from my readings
Yeah,
and
it
stuff like
it
that.
takes a couple weeks.
But I
As far as the postpartum though, is they say, you know, a few days to a few weeks, if it goes on longer than 2 to 4 weeks, depends on who
But
you
I
listen
wonder
to.
if that's what I'm wondering. I'm like, because there's probably not a lot of enough studies done. But I wonder, is like, if you, those who lose their pregnancy early on, like we did.
Right. What's the
If it
difference?
takes longer, because your body's thinking it's supposed to be pregnant for 9 months, is it like 9 months plus
I'll
those
have to
2
do
months?
some research.
Because
If you guys want to hear about that,
I
let me know.
feel
I'll
like
do
that.
research. Comment, I want to know more, and I will research on the earlier the loss,
Mhm.
your body expects a longer pregnancy, so
Yeah,
what's going
'cause
on with that interim hormone?
Yeah,
As
with my
opposed to your body,
experience,
you know,
that's what it's been
falling
like,
out.
because it was what, 9 to, so like
If
8
you
years.
think about it,
For me,
yeah,
that's how long it was for me to get over
you
it.
went through the full cycle of the hormones.
And then the 3 months after and stuff,
Very
because it
interesting.
wasn't until like a year after that I was able
Yeah.
to kind of.
And if you guys have stories too on how long it took you, you know, were you 10 weeks pregnant and it took you 50 weeks to,
And I think they should use your channel as a way of healing as well, like be able to come to you and me and discuss these topics and
Right.
stories and kind of help encourage women to
and that's what I'm hoping for, is to build the community where
not to
we
like
comment
hate
on
and
it.
judge and stuff, but just a place where they can be like, this is my experience, this is what happened. Because, I felt like I was, even though I've talked to other women, I felt like I was all alone. So the
Right.
more I talked about it, the more I'm like, wait a second, there's some connections with here and this and that, and
Right, and it
some
also
parts-
doesn't make you feel quite as a target, whether you believe in God or not, but God's doing this to me and the whole world. Why me? Why did he do this
did
to
I
me?
do something like, or not
Yeah.
even God, but like, what did I do? Because my job was very physical. I'm like, one of my
See, mine too,
coworkers
I
came up to
lifted-
one of my coworkers came up to me and she's like, do you think the stress and the physical labor of this job is what caused your miscarriage? She just like came up to me about it. I'm just like it was shortly after like losing the
Right.
baby. I'm like, how dare you? But then I kind of stepped back, was like, she's trying to connect with me.
Right.
She's just trying to like comfort me and stuff like that. She means well.
And I'm glad you recognize that too, you know, because sometimes people are like, well, then you can try again if it wasn't meant with this, and you're like,
Or people would come up to me and like, oh, how's the baby? And you're like, I lost the baby. Like,
yeah.
I was gone for 2 weeks.
The one thing I had a hard time with, I had my daughter, and I was actually, I think I was still walking around trying to stimulate the labor.
Mhm.
So I didn't look pregnant. I was very lucky. Biggest my waist got was 30 inches. When she dropped, it was 32. It was just all hips and thighs. But there's a lady in a wheelchair on the maternity ward, probably 25, 26 years old. I'm like, oh, what'd you have? She's like, I lost my baby. I was like, oh. So I couldn't, because she's wearing the gown.
But
And
you're in a place where you're supposed to have
yeah,
like,
so be cautious on that, even though she was on the maternity ward, not looking pregnant anymore, in a gown. I was all, you know, all bubbly, like, oh, what'd you have? And that's one thing I regret, you know, because she probably didn't have time to process it yet, you know. And that's too, you know, when
and that's what my mom had trouble with whenever she had a baby. They had to wheel her down the hall to her recovery room because she still had to be in the.
I had to be on labor and delivery.
Yeah.
When I had a blood transfusion, you hear the babies crying. The only place they had for me was on labor and delivery with crying babies.
Yeah,
all
but
night long.
but you needed to be on that floor, like that's the only.
That's the only room they had, because it was like
Mhm.
in end of
But
summer.
also, your recovery would be the same as any mother who had just given birth,
They could have had me at any other.
Really?
Yeah, they already did the DNC. And that was my room. And it was on New Year's Eve. And it was
Oh
like,
my gosh, we have similar stories.
yeah, all my, like I said, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, all landmark dates.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
just really hard.
and that's the whole stretch of the holidays.
And then you're trying to grieve and understand, and then you have all these like, it's not just mental, it's physical. And
Yeah,
I don't think and that's what I'm an advocate about, because they tell you about the mental aspect of it,
right.
but they don't.
And you
talk
have
about the
reminders too,
physical and,
of
yeah.
the extra weight, or, you know, maybe you started buying baby items.
Oh, I gained a lot of weight after the miscarriage and stuff.
Was that depression eating?
I think it was like kind of like cortisol, like stress.
Stress will cause cortisol, yes, and that's a stress hormone, it can cause weight gain,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah, I think it had a lot to do with it, because I wasn't changing my ways and stuff like that. And I just,
Yeah,
just can't like get that, and it's hard because when I lost my baby weight after having my kids pretty quickly. But I think it's because like breastfeeding and then being active and
breastfeeding
stuff like that.
definitely makes a difference.
This pregnancy weight, even though I wasn't that far, I did gain some weight.
Right.
It was harder for me because you kind of go into that depression,
Right,
and you're like I was confident after having my two kids, even though I was a little heavy because of the, your stomach and stuff like that. It's like, hey, this is, um, you know, this with this body, I have two babies. And
right,
I kind of like hated my body because I felt self-conscious after losing the baby, having a miscarriage, because I had the
You-
body of someone who was pregnant and this
But
reminder
without
of
the-
it, but there's no celebration at the end of
right.
the work, even though it was just
It's
puppy,
almost like wrinkles when you get old. I lived
Yeah,
a
like,
great life.
or like stretch
Love when
marks,
you're
like, oh
5,
yeah.
you don't want.
But I'm like, no, I got these stretch marks and I got nothing for it,
Right.
so that was kind of like hard. And
Well, I am so thankful that you
I'm
joined us.
happy that I was like, actually, we finally did a video today. I know it's probably everyone's like, this is not the greatest topic, but
It's what needs to be talked about.
Mhm.
So Mallory, she doesn't know this yet, but she'll be
Well,
joining us on a lot more. We want to do a lot of different
we'll
things.
see what the comments say. Like, oh, I don't know
Comment
about-
below that you want.
if you want to see more of my honesty and.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm excited that, we finally because I know we've been talking about it for a long
Yeah.
time, but it's nice. Sorry guys, this is my first video, so I'm not very familiar, so I'm glad that I have.
So show her some love, hit that like button, share if it'll help somebody. And definitely one-on-ones are available. We are here to help you and help in healing one day at a time. See you in the next video.
Bye.